mixed reviews on this in the industry. It depends. To me, you just don't want to sound too robotic in your replies. Like if somebody says, I love all the amenities here, staff is really friendly, you don't want to come back and reply, I love to hear that you love our sparkling swimming pool, our spacious dog park, and our unlimited coffee bar. That sounds crazy.
Welcome back to the Multifamily Marketers Podcast. I'm Josh Grillo, co-founder, Resident 360 host, and I'm also here with our co-host, Caroline Mills. Caroline, how are you today?
Hey, doing great. Hope you are.
I am doing fantastic. So we have a action-packed episode today. We are talking about Google business listings and, more importantly, how to outrank your competitors. And the way we're going to do this, Caroline, I was thinking about it. How can we make this really easy for everybody to understand in terms of what's really important on a Google business listing and what's not so important? Is I thought that we'd kind of do it like a report card. So we'll assign a grade to it. So we're going to do an A+ for the must-haves, the must-have things you need to do to A, B, C, D, and F. F being the things that you probably don't really need to pay attention to. They're okay if you have, but you don't need to spend a lot of time and energy on them. So I think that will make it easy for everybody to kind of follow along and quantify what they want to be doing on their Google business listing when it comes to their properties. And more importantly, having those listings outrank their competitors. So are you ready to dive into it?
I'm ready. I like that. All important things, but this can help people know where to start, what to start looking for, and what's the most important. Awesome.
So let's start right from the top. Google Business Listings, Google My Business has a couple different names there.
Yeah.
And for anybody listening that is quite just, unsure, what is a Google business listing? Well, I think probably the easiest way is if you go Google your property name, more than likely you're going to have a little side panel that pulls up. If you're on a desktop computer, it's going to have pictures of your property name, and then information about your property. That's essentially Google business listing. If you're on a mobile device, more than likely it's probably going to be the very first thing that pulls up with a link to your website, reviews, your hours, and so forth. So that's your Google business listing. But for sake of this show, we want to talk about the most important things that you can do to make sure that listing actually ranks well and outranks your competitors. So starting at the very top, the A+ categories, the A+, the things that you got to do. So I'm going to ask you, Caroline, primary category. How important is the primary category?
Yeah, the primary category is really important. This is what Google knows how to feed you to people, what people are going to be looking for, and how to rank you in what they have as their best categories. So if you get this wrong or you don't have one, you can essentially be invisible to Google. It's going to be harder for them to pair you up with who is looking for you. And if it is right, that is going to be what helps you outrank somebody else. And so you might see that there's a few on there. You can have more than one, but the primary category, you absolutely want to get that right. A+. This is a game changer.
So what is that primary category? It's essentially when you fill out your listing and when you start your listing, you can change this at any time. You're going to choose either apartment building or apartment complex. Those are pretty much the two that you want to have. It's one or the other as your primary. So just think of that. There's nothing else you need to choose. That's really it. And I would probably choose apartment building if it was me as the primary category. Now, we have secondary categories as well. We'll get to those in a second.
Yeah.
But the next, I would say, A+ thing is reviews. Caroline, how important are reviews?
You know my love for reviews from our past episodes. So this is absolutely an A+ game changer. We've got reviews, and so the more reviews, the better reviews, and the more consistent reviews you get. These are all fuel rankings to help you show better and show out your competition. So we've talked about this in digital curb appeal and review management. But yeah, having, if you have two properties and they're compared and one property has 5 reviews and they're at a 2.5 and the last review was 3 months ago, they're just not going to get the same ranking as somebody who's got 140 reviews, a 4.8 rating. Their last review was 3 days ago and they're all being replied to. It does make a difference for Google and it can impact your SEO. Absolutely.
So consistency is key then with reviews. You need to have fresh reviews constantly happening.
Absolutely. I think we even see that as consumers. If you go to look for anything on Amazon, shopping, whatever, and the last time that you've seen any kind of review left for this product was a year ago, you're like, well, I don't know. Is that still as good as it was, or is it still as bad as it was? It can really impact your performance.
Okay. Next, the last thing that gets an A plus, one thing you really need to pay attention to is the actual business name. So we audit a lot of Google business listings here at Resident 360. And one of the common things we see is the apartment name is on the listing, but it'll just be the name, but it won't have the word apartments afterwards.
Yes.
So it could be like, the name could be City Heights, but it won't have the word apartments after it. So having that keyword in the actual name, the business name, is super, super important. Even better if you can have the location. But Google's very strict. So Google guidelines are your property name really needs to match what's on your Google business listing. Now, I think it's okay if you have the word apartments because that's what you are. You are an apartment community. You are an apartment building. So I think that's totally fine. But if you do go and try to slide in, say, City Heights, North Park Apartments, and you try to slide in your local neighborhood name, sure, that'll definitely help you rank better. But the reality is Google could shut you down for that. I haven't seen them do that, but you definitely want to be wary of that. You got any thoughts on that, Caroline?
That's a good call out on that. Like there's a certain amount you can do, but try and use those. Well, as we move through this, you can use those key indicators and those keywords other places in your Google listing to help you. But absolutely, I say, especially like you said, if you're a name like City Heights or maybe Greenfield or something where it's known as like the neighborhood in the area you're living in, and that name could mean a few different things of where people are searching, absolutely having apartments and having that correct primary category will definitely help you.
Yeah, primary keyword that is. So think of it like this. It's high reward, but also a little bit high risk.
Yes.
So I think at the very ease, you can have the word apartments in your business name and highly recommend doing that. But when it comes to actually including the neighborhood name as well, unless that's actually your name of the apartment community, probably would omit that. So those are your top 3 things for A+. And when it comes to the scorecard here, you've got your primary category, you got your reviews, and then you got your keywords in your business name. Next, I want to move to just the A category, right? And some of the A category things we're going to cover are additional categories, your website URL, photos and videos, and address. And the very first thing I want to talk about is additional categories. So Caroline, we started it off with saying, hey, primary category, you can only choose one. What should it be? It's either going to be apartment building, apartment complex. Now, your Google listing also allows you to choose secondary categories. So I actually wrote these down. I'm going to just read them out so everybody has them. These are other secondary categories within Google that you can choose, which then will help your listing show up if somebody's particularly searching for these things, right? And keep in mind with Google, it is always changing. They are always adding more categories, taking categories away in some cases. So it pays to just be checking and checking and checking. So here we go. Property management company, apartment rental agency, townhouse complex, furnished apartment building, housing complex, student housing center, and real estate rental agency. So those are all secondary categories that have somewhat to do with multifamily properties that you could probably claim and put there as your secondary category.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as far as website URL, Caroline, obviously that's pretty critical, right?
Yes, absolutely. The website link, very, very strong essential. Absolutely need this. When we're working with lease ups, especially early on, and we're trying to help them get the Google business profile up and running, website is definitely one of the first things we want. We've talked about this in other episodes, but even if it's a landing page, go ahead and put that URL in so Google starts crawling it and indexing it for you. And this is essentially where your conversions happen. So if you don't have a working website link, you're going to be losing leads. We want people to easily be able to find you, to convert, to call you, to send messages. And it's absolutely very, very important to have a working one and the correct one. So keep this in mind, if you have transitioning properties too, if you go through a name change, if you're going through some kind of rebrand and your URL changes, don't forget to audit it on these places and make sure you've got the correct URL on all of these platforms.
Okay. What about photos as well? I know they're part of the A scorecard. Talk to me about photos. We look at a lot of photos. We see a lot of not great photos, faded photos, outdated photos. And I know you know a lot about photos, so let's dive into that real quickly.
Yeah, photos are very important. Just like reviews, you want them to be fresh and you want them to showcase what the property is currently at to this day. You can do all sorts of things, and your residents can also post photos. So I think that is something we do run into with companies when we're working with them. Is they're like, well, I don't want that photo up there, and it might be a resident photo. So you posting more consistent and up-to-date photos is one, going to give people a mix of what they're looking at. It's also going to keep your photos fresh and at the top, so that when people are looking at your amenities and interiors, this could be the first place you grab them before they even get to your website if they like what they see. And it just helps Google verify this. It's running these photos against what it's seeing on your website. All of these things just working in tandem to help you place better and to help your SEO.
And last part of our A score is address, and more importantly, address accuracy. Can you speak to that?
Yes, this is vitally important for anybody. We work with new devs a lot with this part too, is address accuracy. So not only having the correct name listed there, the correct actual address, but also the PIN. So pay attention to where it's placing your PIN. You can give recommendations to Google, even if you're a brand new property, of how you want people to access your property. What is the easiest way? And you may have some new names of roads coming in when you're doing this, but you can describe it to Google. They go through these relatively quickly when you make these recommendations. And the more recommendations you have on wanting to get a PIN changed, or if you're a provider that you have, like your listings provider works with Google to do this for you. Absolutely. You don't want people to want to come to your property and be ready to sign a lease. They go and put in the address and they click Google Maps and now they can't get to you. They can see your property complex across the street and now they don't know how to get to you or where to find you. And then they end up just leaving. So definitely important.
Perfect. All right. So those are your A's. We had the A plus, the A's. Now we're going to transition down to our B score.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So very first thing is business hours. Talk to me about business hours, Caroline.
Yes. So these definitely still matter. They're not deal breakers, but you just want to make sure that if you are going to have them, that they are correct. Same reason as your address. We want to make sure if somebody's ready to come over to you or they're giving you a call, that yes, they can click your website and go and look there for hours too. But I think we all look at Google pretty quickly when we're looking if a restaurant we want is still open or a store we need to run out to. How late are they going to be open? It's definitely very important. And this could also make or break somebody coming to your property or not. So just make sure you're not showing closed during the day. Edit those as you need to. Or you can even, if you release up, you can have select hours. You can say opening soon. There's a few different things you can work with if you are in that position.
So the rule here is pay attention to your hours,
yes.
Right? It's not a set it and forget it.
Yes.
Make sure if you are open to 7 p.m. for tours, that it reflects on your Google listing and not saying 5 p.m. you're closed.
Yeah.
Okay. And products and services, this again, it's part of our B score, things that you need to pay attention of. And when you think of products and services, think of it like as floor plans and amenities. So talk about this, Caroline. How are we going about what should they put here? What should they put for their products and services?
Yeah, I really products and services both fall here in the solid category. I am personally a fan of the products just because if you've got some really interesting or cool floor plans, things that are again going to set you apart that could grab somebody's attention, I think these are definitely important to have on there. Let people get an idea of what some of your 2 bedrooms look like before they even get to your website. That could draw them in versus somebody now having to go to somebody else's website, shift through things, try and find something they like. And then your services, typically ones we could see pet friendly, gated, some pretty standout features that could draw somebody in. Again, you just want to make sure that these are staying updated. I think we often see times where maybe some general 2D black and white drawings have been put in the products maybe years and years ago. And now you've got these really nice fancy 3D floor plans that show the countertop colors and your walk-in closet, and they just showcase you a little bit better. So just make sure if this is something that you're doing, that it is staying updated.
Awesome. Okay. And last thing is NRB score is attributes. So what about attributes? Are they important? Are they not important? Are they even a ranking driver?
They're not a ranking driver. I think this can be a nice filler and it can just kind of flush out your listing as a whole. But no, this is not actually a ranking driver that's helping or hurting your SEO by any means.
Good to know. All right. So moving down to C, our report card. We are on the letter C now, or grade C. And talk about these things. First thing is our appointment link or appointment URL, not like our website URL. This is our appointment URL. So what do you think about this, Caroline?
Yeah, these are all nice to haves, as we move down. And that's a good point of you noting that it's different. If you don't currently have one, you may not know that these exist or that you could have this. These are only useful if they actually book tours, meaning it doesn't just lead them to your property website, but it is truly a link that somebody clicks where it immediately pops up a calendar and the option to book a tour. If you don't have that with your CRM or your tracking tool, whoever you're using, then you don't need to have it. But if you have it, it's nice. Again, not impacting that SEO.
All right. Now moves me to Google Posts, which we definitely do a lot of Google Posts here at Resident 360. So do they work? We have them in, as a C grade. So people should be doing them. But what's the issue when it comes to Google Posts?
Yes, consistency. And I know we've mentioned that quite a few times throughout this as we move through the grades, but this is still something you want to be consistent with. If you have abandoned post, it can just look really sad or dated or not even reflect what you're doing. Especially, I've seen ones where it's like, it could be like Happy Father's Day and it's from 2 years ago. And you're like, wow, now I know it's really outdated because now it was in June, it was years ago, that kind of stuff. So again, I think it's great. It will help your SEO ranking if you're posting consistently. But again, that's the key, is posting consistently, having something on there that reflects what you're currently doing, maybe specials you're highlighting. It can all flow with your social media and just help you out more. But you just don't want this to look sad and abandoned.
Yeah, I think the rule here is 3-5 days a week of posting would be ideal. I do think it's a conversion factor. I really do. Maybe it's not as much on the ranking side, but more, like I said, on the conversion side. So if you have somebody checking out your Google business listing, which a lot of people do, and they're actually just seeing what the property's all about, right? They're looking at your photos, looking at all your information, look at your reviews. Now, all of a sudden, they stumbled upon your post and they're seeing, pretty active posts, right? They're seeing things that are happening in the neighborhood, events that your resident events that you're doing at the community as well. That's being placed as Google posts. That can really help take that person and convert them over to a phone call or potentially a email form fill for a tour. So definitely worth doing. Don't abandon it by any means, and just make sure it's consistency, right? If you have that Valentine's Day Google post from 2023 and you haven't updated since, until today's date, well, it's time to get busy on that.
Yeah.
So next is social media links. Are they, nice to have? What's the deal with social media?
Yeah, these are definitely nice to haves. I think just like we said with verifying information earlier, they are definitely useful, especially depending on the type of property you're going after. Think of student housing. Think of somebody in a very active community that wants to check your social media. I would be someone who wants to look at property social media. So if I could have it all in one place, I would love that. Your 55 up crowd may not want to go look at your Instagram the same way as somebody else, but they're nice to have. They won't boost your SEO rankings by any means. They play no part in the health of your GBP, but they're nice to have. And like you said, I think it could be a good conversion point. Ideally, I would love to see that you're posting the same post to your Google listing as you are your social media listings. That would just help you out. But if you don't have that feature or that ability to do that, then definitely having them linked. And again, that's one of those things. Just make sure it's the right link. It's the most up-to-date, correct Facebook, correct Instagram, and it's all leading to the right place. You have a bunch of cool ones you can do now. You can do YouTube. So I know we talk with clients all the time about videos they've got. So there's a lot of different facets you can use here. I think they're nice to have if you keep them up to date and they're working. But don't feel like you need to rush and do that to boost your SEO.
Got it. Okay. So we're going to move on to our final two scores are D and F. And these things are, I just say that I think they're things that you can do them, but I don't think you need to really like waste your time on them or,
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time on them. And there's a few of them. So one of the big ones is the Q&A section. So I've
Mm-hmm.
talked a lot about the Q&A over the last few years, and I do think it's worth having a good Q&A section where, you write down your top 10 frequently asked questions and make sure those are posted to
Yes.
your listing, and then you go back and answer those,
Yes.
and then
That's
you
the
can
key.
actually upvote them, right? So you get yourself and your people on your team, and what I think it's like a thumbs up, and it will take your questions and move them up to the top of the
Mm-hmm.
answers. Look, why is that important? Because a lot of times when you look at listings and you see Q&A, it's usually from people that have asked questions, and a lot of the questions they may or may not have, really pertain to your property,
Mm-hmm.
right? House parking, what's the pet policy? Do you take Section 8? I mean, there's some stuff, what's the price for a 2-bedroom?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, these questions all go unanswered, right? Or if they do get answered, they get answered like 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think just as a boilerplate, I think anytime you have a listing, just literally, it's like take your top 10 most frequently asked questions, answer those,
Mm-hmm.
and have that posted to your Google listing. Other than that, I wouldn't spend all that much time on it. It's not going to help you outperform in any way, shape, or form from a rankings perspective, but I think it is a nice to have perspective, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with that on the D category, talking about service areas. Service areas don't really matter here
Mm-hmm.
if you're a brick and mortar apartment community. Isn't that right, Caroline?
Yeah, correct. I think a lot of people confuse this with, oh, well, what is my area that people can come and find me in? And that's not truly what it is. It's more for like a pizza place. How far are you driving out? What areas are you going to drive and service? Things like that. So you're staying, your apartment's not moving, it's not going anywhere. You guys can't go out anywhere. So you do not need a service area.
Got it. And then your description, right? Obviously, you want to have a description. You need to have a description
Yes.
on your listing, but it's not something that is going to, keyword stuffing it or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. That's not going to play a part in a ranking factor for Google, right? You're not going to, outrank somebody because you stuffed a bunch of keywords such as apartments in North Park in your
Correct.
listing, right?
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. You obviously want to have a description and write a good one. People are going to pay attention to that,
Mm-hmm.
but inserting keywords and stuff like that, it's not going to help you rank better. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. And then also, Caroline, keywords in review responses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's your thoughts there?
There's mixed reviews on this in the industry. It depends. To me, you just don't want to sound too robotic in your replies. Like if somebody says, I love all the amenities here, staff is really friendly, you don't want to come back and reply, I love to hear that you love our sparkling swimming pool, our spacious dog park, and our unlimited coffee bar. That sounds crazy. Like that's not how somebody talks to somebody else. So I think if you can do it if you want to, don't spend crazy amounts of time on this. If you want to, and you're just reiterating back to them what they said in a way that is genuine and that you would actually say in person, like picture saying this out loud to somebody when they say this to you, if it makes sense in that, then absolutely you can say it. But we don't have really any data that proves this is truly helping you rank any better or not. And again, like you said in the description, just be careful where you're putting these keywords and what you're using. There's ones that I've seen a lot of brand new for apartments, like brand new community. And so just make sure it's not 7 years down the line that you're not still saying brand new community, especially in, like a reply. We love that you love our brand new community. That sounds crazy.
A good point. Okay, so I think that wraps up the scorecard from A+ to F. So again, outranking your competition. Quick highlight review. The top things that you can do is proper primary category.
Mm-hmm.
Have review consistency. You want constant new reviews. Having a keyword in your business name. That's probably one of the biggest things you can do, but just got to be very, very wary of that.
Mm-hmm.
Second part, secondary categories. Have lots of secondary categories. I gave the list earlier. Definitely use those. Have your website URL. Have updated photos, even video if you have them, and make sure your address is correct with the PIN. So other than that, those are your top things, right? Make sure you do those things. And I think from the very least, let's just talk about, future timeframes. Maybe every 30 days, you want to check back in on your Google listing to make sure Google hasn't created something new for you to fill out,
Yes.
right? They're always introducing new things.
Yeah.
So it's not out of sight, out of mind. You want to make sure you're constantly looking back in. Every month is great to see what's new there, things you want to change, things you want to update, see what's happening. Obviously, with reviews, you want to respond to every single review that comes in as soon as it comes in, positive and negative. We all know that. And let's see, if there's one final takeaway, Caroline, and we have looked at a lot of Google listings for multifamily communities over the last 12 months. If there's one final takeaway, what is the number one thing that you see on the majority of listings that you've looked at where you're like, oh my goodness, why, why they need to fix this? What is the one common thing you see?
Photos. I would say photos. I've talked a lot about my love for reviews, which will still remain my number one love. But photos, when you pull up somebody's profile listing, when we're doing an audit on somebody, and the very first thing is, unfortunately, a negative photo uploaded by somebody else, and then I go to click it, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's recent. And it was 3 years ago, and you've posted no photos in the meantime. I think that is detrimentally hurting you. Get as many up-to-date and correct and beautiful-looking photos that you can. I think they are, looked through, and they can impact somebody's ability to move forward on reaching out to you.
Well, photos do help sell the property, right? I mean, that's it, right? It really helps sell the property for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we will wrap up this episode of the Multifamily Marketers Podcast. I appreciate everybody listening today, and hopefully you got something from this episode. And please take a second, like, subscribe, follow us, forward this to a team member, help them out, help us grow the podcast as well. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Caroline, I'll see you next week. We'll have another great topic.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. Bye.